Rick Set 808 Productions
presents The Beat Factory. Hey, welcome to The Beat Factory. Take a seat, have a sit a while. We're going to talk about some music today. You're having the pleasure to sit with Lukefahr, the most knowledgeable musician you've never heard of. We're going to talk about the Life of Pablo by Kanye West. I got a lot to say about this, and I prepared some notes, as I was accused last time to not be well prepared. So if you hear a little bit of page turn, it's because I care about this one. And I care about this one because everything I've seen is, they tell me that this is a terrible album. They're saying that it's no good, that it doesn't make any sense, they just don't get it. The music's, he thinks he's playing off of Jesus again. He thinks he thinks he's God. Well, what I think you're not understanding is that there's such a big picture to this. There's so much involved in this album. I think you gotta at least look at the amount of time he invested in this album, right? He said he started it in November 2013, and he didn't finish it until February 2016, depending on when you want to, end the creative process, because he did some. We'll talk about what he did a little later. But clearly, that's what, 2.5, 3 years of just thinking of a creative process. He put time into this. I want to put a thing out there. I want to say that Kanye was creating couture hip hop. Now, what I mean by that? So, couture, high class fashion, where you're pulling from random things. It looks awkward. You're pushing boundaries. That's the goal that Kanye was doing. Was he successful? Well, that's a different story. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to say if you like it, you like it. This is clearly an album for Kanye fans. If you're not a fan, if you weren't a fan of Kanye before, you're not going to like him now, right? But now he's in a place where he's like, I'm going to create what I want to create. People are saying, people saying this is Kanye's White Album. No, it's not. It sounds terrible. I think they're missing the point of the big picture. Everything associated with this album is part of this album, not just the music. I'm saying that the cover art, I'm saying the way he advertised it, I'm saying the way he added it, associated with his clothing line. Everything you can think of at the time that he released and thought of this music, this album, is the Life of Pablo. Pablo Picasso, he's doing this pull from everything. He's doing conjunct whatever. He's giving him freedom to do what he wants to do. All right. I have evidence, so let's move on. I want to start with the cover art, because the cover art is the first thing that a listener sees. The general listener will see of any album. You pick up the album and you see the cover, and you initially have a feeling from it, right? Well, there's an article on djbooth.net. It's written by Yo. And he's saying that this looks simple. All you see is just a repeated line of Life of Pablo. It's off cant. Then you got this repeated line down, like which one. What you don't understand is that this album cover is not the first one he put out. He put multiple album covers. And on the preceding one, he circled one of the which one. So he's making you think like, so depending on which release version, which one of this is what you're supposed to be focused on. He's encouraging you to keep questioning what he's doing. I'm going to tell you there's a reason behind that. And so the reason, we're going to digress a little bit. The reason I'm putting a lot of emphasis on this album cover is because Kanye has done this repeatedly repeatedly he does this. Go back to College Dropout. Remember that cover? Where it's the bear sitting, in that New York high school gym. In that, so it's Kanye in the bear suit. I don't know if most of y'all knew that. It's him sitting in that. So who, one of on your Outbreak solo album, you're gonna cover your face? Who did that at that time? Here's the other thing. He got Danny Clinch to take the photo. This guy is a famous photographer, meaning he's taking pictures of Tupac to Johnny Cash. Like, this guy, you pay money for this guy. He's not just a random dude who's taking a photo, right? So he's already thinking, oh, I want the best of the best to take this photo. That ain't cheap. You don't just spend money on a photographer. Not at this level. You know what I'm saying? Not when you're working, with Rockefeller Records. And then the designer, Eric Duvachet, I think it's Duvachet, whatever. It's a French name. Point is that the creative designer working at Rockefeller at the time, he was working as the design director for Nike. So you've got two incredible people. You've got a designer and a photographer. You pay money for these guys. You're going to think about what you're asking them to do, right? And probably the best, we're still talking about the College Dropout cover. Remember that there's that outline around the photo, and there's the cherubs, and it's gold lace, whatever. That's from a 16th century book of illustrations. So he's thinking, right? So Kanye has a team of pros. Like, he thinks about everything. Everything means a thing. So going back to this cover. Actually, you can't even go there. You got to think about the Yeezus cover too. So Yeezus, if you guys know that album, it's just a blank album cover. There's nothing on it. It's just basically a blank CD. Remember, you would get the CD, for those who remember this. You go to Walmart, you buy the empty CD case, and you would just get the blank, CDR, and you would burn it for your friend. And that's what the Yeezus cover album is. Because he's telling you, and he in various interviews he said this, that Yeezus was supposed to be just listen to the music. Just listen to the music. There's nothing else attached to this. Don't think of anything else. Because he was trying to be experimental. That's another conversation. Was he successful or not? Did he just, hear some noise hop and think that he could do it too? We're not even getting involved in that because we're focused on Life of Pablo. Kanye tweeted that this album is both a gospel and a hip hop album. So you got to keep that. You got to keep that in mind. So he's already told you the whole concept right now. Taking that, now look at the album cover. You've got a picture of a little big booty lady in a swimsuit, and you're supposed to think that it's Kim Kardashian. Well, it's not. It's actually Shanice Halick. She's a swimsuit model. But the important thing to say is that she's Instagram famous. Apparently, Kanye had a bunch of photos, and he made Kim hey, which one looks better? And then Kim Kardashian was like, oh, that one looks good. And that's the one that they chose. But the main thing is that it's an Instagram photo. And the other photo you're going to see on the cover of The Life of Pablo, it's clearly a wedding from the black community. So you've got the contrast, right? Which one? Is it the Kim Kardashian Instagram lifestyle, or is it the gospel influence of his mother, Kanye's mother? Right? Which one is his guiding influence in his life? Because we're not gonna. we don't want to get bogged down in terms of like lyricism of the album, because it's not something that is groundbreaking. He's talking about finding himself in this world of Instagram fame, being married to the Kardashians, because you're not just married to Kim, you're married to all that other crap. So let me take an example. The song Highlights. That song is about, his success. He's talking about his success with Kim Kardashian, and it's a prayer. And there's a line in there where he's saying like, "Oh, I hope Rob and China get better." Well, if you guys follow the news, that's interesting, right? But they contrast that where he's saying like, "I need every bad bitch up in Equinox. If I want to know if you were freaking out." Equinox is a high-end, expensive like gym thing, right? So he's contrasting the prayer versus this world of sin that he finds himself in, right? Keep that out. And so and he starts out he starts out the album with that the little girl. And she said, "We don't want no devils in this house, Lord." That little cute little girl, and she's killing it. She's just, she's being the gospel girl, right? Well, that sample is from Instagram. So that the first thing you hear is a contrast of Instagram culture and the gospel culture. So just looking at the album cover itself, you've already been told what you're supposed to be focusing on. The first thing you hear coming out of the speakers is a contrast itself, where it's a gospel, little child being brought up in that Christian community and then being put on Instagram. The next song is Father Stretch My Hands, Part 1, Part 2. Both those are the samples. The sample is basically from Pastor T.L. Barrett. It's from a 1976 album, Don't Pass Me By, right? It's a gospel album. And then Part 2, this Part 1, Part 2 of this song. Part 2 is the designer, Panda. I think everybody, if you're a listener of hip-hop, you're going to know that Panda song by designer. And so Part 1, Part 2. Same thing. Gospel sample, pulling from a song of the Life of Sin from the current hip-hop world, from those who use Instagram. And I'm pointing to that the fact that Kanye is composing this entire album. The fact that he starts out with the cover telling you that there's contrast in his life. The first thing you hear is contrast in his life. The little girl, the Instagram post. That's where you're supposed to be thinking about this. So not only is the cover art representative of the album, but then so is the way he advertised it. No, we'll talk about this. So in 2010, when he was promoting My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, he was doing this thing of Good Fridays, where he was releasing a single a week, and it was like from August to Christmas that year. He was doing one single a week in preparation for the release of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And it was successful. It brought him into the conversation. People were waiting for that new track. So he brought that back for this album. But guess who started it? It was Kim Kardashian on Instagram. So you got Kim Kardashian already associated with this album when it is released, saying, hey, guess what? It's coming up. We're going to do this Good Friday thing. We're going to be releasing singles up until. And the whole Instagram culture is now part of this album. Not only that, he changes the name for multiple multiple names, right? And so originally it was named So Help Me God. Right there, you get Kim Kardashian to mention on Instagram of the album entitled So Help Me God. It's this gospel, hip-hop, gospel / Instagram, there's the struggle. And listen to the lyrics, that's the whole point of this album. That's where Kanye is right now. He's trying to figure out how to live his life the way his mother told him to do it. And he finds himself hanging out with Kim Kardashian, Rob Kardashian, and Black China. Not only that, so he changes the name from So Help Me God to Swish to Waves before he resolves on the Life of Pablo. So he's got 4 iterations of different names he's putting out on Instagram. And so you're constantly getting all the websites to be, oh, he changed the name again. Is Kanye crazy? What is Kanye doing? Oh, we're on E! Hollywood Live. What do you think about Kanye doing? Guess what? You're talking about him. That's what the Kardashians do. They just flood the internet. He's playing everybody on this thing. From the beginning, he was doing that. And he starts like a Twitter war with Amber Rose and Wiz Khalifa on just random crap. And the way to end it was that Kim Kardashian had to take a selfie with Amber Rose, and then oh, the beef is done now. Whatever. This Instagram culture is so. You think these people aren't just flooding the internet? There's a reasoning, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think that every photo that Khloe Kardashian puts up on the internet is not thought out. They're promoting something. It's their app, it's their game, it's their clothing line, it's their makeup line. There's something behind it. And so Kanye is using that for this album, The Life of Pablo. Then he even tweets about Bill Cosby at the time, right when it was getting big, that Bill Cosby issue. So you're gonna insert yourself into some drama. Why? Because Twitter's gonna blow up. They're gonna say, "Oh, Kanye's talking about Bill Cosby. Oh, does he have a right to talk about it? What do you think about his stance on it?" Great. We're talking about Kanye West. We're talking about his upcoming album. They're playing you. They're using this Instagram culture for their benefit. He's applying what the Kardashians have done for clothing lines and for makeup. He's using it for hip hop. And you know that because the album release party for Life of Pablo was all centered around the Yeezy Season 3 clothing line with Adidas. And so he premieres it at Madison Square Garden. The clothing line, which is already pretty crazy. You're going to have a clothing line premiere at Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden is supposed to be Rock Central. It's where all the big names go, right? And so I'm going to point to that as saying that the Yeezy Season 3 fashion show is part of the album. Because look at the cover. Look at the first track. Look at this concept of Instagram versus gospel culture. And then he's going to be putting out some couture clothing line, which then makes him have the ability to be couture on the music. He's trying to be high fashion, not only in the music, but on the Yeezy Season 3. Like that clothing line, no one wears those clothes. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to see anybody wearing Yeezy Season 3 on the street. They're they're long and sloppy and stuff. It's couture. He's hanging out with Kim Kardashian, who understands fashion, who goes to couture fashion, goes to Fashion Week in France, he's hanging out with artists and their medium is clothes, and they're pulling from everywhere. They're making collages, calling it a clothing line. And I've seen there's a documentary on Netflix where they're talking about the fashion of hip hop, of like what back in the day. It was cool to have. You had to look fresh, and that's always how it's been. But there was always like an associated culture for hip hop. Like you had to have Ralph Lauren, or you had to have Tommy Hilfiger, right? And then back in the day, people would just go and steal crap from downtown Manhattan. Like you bring your 8 boys and you will bum rush the store. And you see how just start grabbing everything before the cops could get you, and you run out the door. And you go back and you start selling that for cheap because it was free, and it's all profit at that point. And now you walking around the neighborhood wearing some Ralph Lauren, Tommy Hilfiger, and you're looking good because it's that high class, it's that goal, it's that everybody strives for the best. If you got a good Rolex on, then they're like, oh, that guy, he's being successful. But there wasn't a member of the black community who was designing high couture clothing for the black community. It's kind of like Fubu. Fubu was one of the first ones, among the first ones who were trying to be like, okay, we're going to design clothing lines for our community. But it wasn't that high couture stuff. So Kanye's finding himself in this new life, in this life of high couture fashion, among this Instagram fashion, among the Kardashians. And so he's going to apply that mindset to his clothing line and to his music. And there's the other thing. He's still doing that advertising thing where he tweeted the album cover before he did the show. And then afterwards, he tweeted a different album cover. So he's changing it. So he's making you. So they're like, oh, he did 2 different album covers. Which album cover is it? And probably in the initial thought process was that he's also was signed on to Tidal at the time. He's trying to get out of it now if you've been following the news. So So Tidal is this new streaming service that needs attention, needs subscribers, right? He tweeted that I'll never release Life of Pablo off Tidal. He tweeted that. Well, I listened to it on Spotify, so that didn't happen, right? But he changed tracks. He changed track listings, right? He changed the cover art itself. So I'm telling you, he's applying this Kim Kardashian Instagram technique of where you just flood the internet, flood the market, make them remember you, stay in the public view. He does it to the music too. So there's an interview by self-titled of Evan Christ. I don't know how you pronounce it, but he's a producer on Kanye's team from Good Music Incorporated. Getting out our dreams. And they're asking what was it like to work with him on this album. And he said Kanye's main things that he was saying was, it's not experimental enough. It's too poppy. I'm like, all right, well, what's the blueprint of this idea? And he's like, don't make a rap beat. Make anything but a rap beat. He tweeted out that this is a gospel hip-hop album. So he's trying to be fancy with it. He's releasing the Yeezy Season 3 fashion, which is all couture. He's trying to be fancy with the beats. He's trying to offer hip-hop couture for this project. So that's when people say this is a choppy collage of different ideas. Yeah, that's what couture is, where you pull from various different ideas. It doesn't make any sense. You're pushing boundaries. And you end up with like, okay, so the best example, right? This whole choppy collage thing has always been what Kanye does. He's always been a producer who takes samples. People get on him for that. He's like, takes a hot song, chops it up, and it makes a beat. he did the exact same thing when you look at the clothing line. He's doing couture. He's chopping up things he's seen before and ends up making something different. I saw an interview with Paul McCartney on BBC. And Paul McCartney, they were asking him, what was it like? Wow, you worked with like such a big name in the rap community. Like, how was that like working with him? And then Paul McCartney says, I didn't know we finished the song. I just hung out with him and we played a little bit of music. And I get an email a little bit later and Kanye says, oh, by the way, here's my latest song. And Paul McCartney's like, when did we finish the song? What he did is he put a microphone in the room and he's just chilling with Paul McCartney. And he puts a guitar in Paul McCartney's hand. Paul McCartney, he's playing a little guitarist, doing whatever. So that song that it's Kanye, Rihanna, and Paul McCartney, that's the song I'm talking about, where it's like a guitar riff and it's supposed to be Paul McCartney playing it. Well, that guitar riff is sped up twice the speed. And if you wait a little bit in that track, you hear like this like high-pitched little singing little voice a little bit. That's Paul McCartney, because the initial track, the recording, was sped up twice the speed, so you get this chipmunk sound. And Kanye decides to leave it in there just to let you know that he's been chopping one of the best pop rock and roll artists of history. And now I sampled the person. I didn't sample the song. And all the people he works with says that's what he does. Michael made it. Big Sean. There's a guy called James Font Leroy. I didn't know his name until I started figuring this out. But he's a producer and he's Grammy Award winning. Right? He was nominated because he was working on To Pimp a Butterfly as a featured artist. And they all these guys are saying the same thing. That they get invited to a party. And they're like, oh shit, I want to go to a Kim Kardashian party. And then they're all just, having a good time. And then out comes Kanye in, all camouflage, maybe a backpack on his back. And he's like, hey, you want to go chill and, write some music in the back? I got a sweet setup of like, top quality recording studio. And so they go in the back and they just do some crap, just like don't know what's happening, unfinished chops. And then boom, weeks later, Kanye says, oh, guess what? I made a thing. We'll put your name on it. The Life of Pablo is high couture hip hop, according to Kanye. All right. So let's make that clear. I'm trying to explain the thought process of Kanye West. Deciding if he did it successfully is a different question. The reason I can appreciate this record is because I understand the thought process behind it. I'm like, wow, you put a lot of effort into this. Were you successful? That's an important question, and I might not say you hit the ball out of the park, Kanye. But because you left so much evidence of your thought process, I'm going to give you a little more credence. I'm going to be like, okay, I kind of see what you're doing here. You're doing that high couture. You're pulling from everything. You're trying to contrast, the previous gospel life from this Instagram culture thing, right? And so that whole high couture, pulling from various things. Look at the features he has on this thing. He's got Ty Dolla $ign. He's got designer, Kid Cudi, Caroline Shaw. Caroline Shaw is a classical singer / violinist. She's like a Grammy Award winning. So intermixed, right, with Chance the Rapper, Rihanna, Young Thug, Chris Brown, The Weeknd, Frank Ocean, Kendrick Lamar, Post Malone. We won't talk about that. I feel like, But, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is like a hodgepodge of like the best of the best. You're grabbing from the best of the things. You're creating the most elite collection for this project. The same thing he's thinking about for the clothing line. The same way he's approaching the advertisement on this. He's got Mike Dean on this. Remember I was talking about Mike Dean? You gotta dig, man. I'm telling you, you gotta dig, because I had no idea that Mike Dean had been working with Kanye forever. He worked with him on College Dropout, on Late Registration. He was a mixer. And then he was a producer on Graduation, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, on the Yeezus album. He's been everywhere on the Life of Pablo. He co-produced on Watch the Throne, right? And here's the other thing too, is that he plays guitar and piano. He toured on the Yeezus Kanye tour. He's not just some guy who's pushing buttons. This Mike Dean is a musician who's worked with Kanye West. He produced the Timmy Turner song by Designer. That was a big hit. Designers, if you don't know Designer, you're not listening to hip hop. Whether or not you like Designer, that's the thing. But there's such an incestuous, community among the people behind the scenes. Mike Dean is everywhere. Mike Dean's worked with Frank Ocean. Oh, and guess, by the way, Rick Rubin has some production credits on this album as well. And Rick Rubin, the guy who's a president of Columbia Records, co-founder of Def Jam Records, that guy. Also, you gotta point out too that there's a lot of writer's notes on this. A lot of people helped out with the lyrics, and I don't think I've ever said that Kanye is the best lyricist ever. I don't know if anybody would ever say he's the best lyricist. Clearly, he's got some big names helping him out. Mike Dean takes a sample on So Alive. It's a Kings of Tomorrow, right? And it's from 2004. And he just takes out the vocal. And so it's a house. It's like a house song. Electronica. And he finds a way to add gospel music under it, which completely changes the original content, the original meaning of that track. It was a house beat. It was, you're supposed to go party. You're supposed to go have a good time, drink, whatever else you want to do. Go dance the night away, hook up. That's what house music is all about. Okay, it's house music. It's a party song. But then you take out the lyrics, you just put a little bit of gospel under it. So now, once again, you've got this contrast of gospel versus party scene / Instagram. Everybody, that theme of using samples and contrasting it with the other side of this, the gospel versus Instagram. That's all throughout this record, which is crazy. That theme is all throughout it. And there's a few tracks that I want to point out, the ones that I really like, right? It's 30 Hours. That's the first one to talk about. And 30 Hours, when you listen to it, I swear it's designed for the Yeezy Season 3 release. Because it just kind of fades. It just sits on the beat. And he starts doing this ad-lib thing. And he actually mentions Madison Square Garden. That was supposed to be for the fashion line that he did. Kareem Riggins. He's a jazz drummer. Not just any jazz drummer. He worked with Paul McCartney. He toured with Paul McCartney. He's worked with The Roots, Talib Kweli, Madlib. Remember this high couture thing? He's pulling from the high class of everything and making this collage, right? And then also Mike Dean is also producing on 30 Hours. Probably one of the best tracks on the album. Fade. Mike Dean produced that. Of course I'm going to like it. I like everything Mike Dean does. Every time I listen to a track, I just have to go look into it and say, who's the guy doing this? Oh, guess what? It was Mike Dean. And then No More Parties in LA. There's a lot in that track. the producer for that is Madlib. And if you don't know who Madlib is, well, guess what? He worked with MF Doom. He worked with Jay Dilla. Listen to that track. The beginning, it's all chopped. It sounds like an MF Doom track, right? He's taken samples from Johnny Guitar Watson, a 1977 black musician. Junie Morrison, 1976, black musician. Larry Graham, 1980. All these samples are on the No More Parties in L.A. Also, we're going to add on just a little sample from Ghostface Killah in 2000. But that track is about Kim Kardashian. It's about finding himself in this world. Kendrick is featured on that, and he says in the song, Instagram is the best way to promote some pussy. And every track of this album, the running theme is gospel, Kanye's Christian past versus Instagram, Kim Kardashian culture. So if the lyrics are talking about Kim, then the music is from back in the day. If he's mentioning some gospel stuff, the music most likely will have a sample from a house beat. All that's in there. This is what composers do, where they take this is the ultimate concept album by Kanye West. "30 Hours" has a sample by Rare Earth. That's another 1970s band. He's pulling from all these old school things, and he's talking about how he finds himself in Kim Kardashian's world. You got to go back to the album cover. I'm telling you, look at the album cover. The contrast is clear. Which one is it? Which is the influence? Is it the gospel marriage? Is it his mom, or is it Kim's lifestyle? That big booty girl. Like, it's just, what a terrible, way to put her in a box, is that she's just this Instagram sex symbol. But that's what it is. You can't look past it. It's just, what are you gonna do? All the lyrics of Life of Pablo, it's meant to chronicle his life, right? It's his life now with Kim Kardashian, and it's the struggle of success and fame, Instagram parties versus, the way his family raised him among sin. Like, that's a gospel idea. Like, how are you going to survive in this world of sin? The sin of reality television, the sin of Instagram, the sin of self-indulgence. I'm sure he's got that in his head. This album shows that Kanye can be an auteur. An auteur meaning he's thinking of everything. I'm going back to that. The first thing you hear in this album is that little girl talking about, we don't want no devils in this house, Lord. And it's on Instagram. That sums up the entire concept of this record. And then, so to think like, okay, this is good, this is bad. You can't, I don't want to do that. I don't want to say that this is a bad record. I actually really enjoyed it. I actually enjoy the music, probably because I like Mike Dean. And I've always loved Kanye since Late Registration. And the fact that I can recognize all the thought process that he put into this. Not just the music. It's the album cover. It's the way he advertised it. It's just everything. It's the Yeezy Season 3 High Couture. Everything's associated with this. You can't take this album on its own. He tells you can't do that. And having that concept, you understand this concept of the Pablo Picasso thing. He's pulling from everywhere. Everything associated with this album is this album. And I have to respect him for that, because I don't know of any other album that has approached every aspect of an album the way that Kanye's done this. Everything was thought out and purposeful. Everything is associated to this contrast idea that he's talking about. What his mom brought him up in and where he finds himself today. That's crazy. I'm so... wow. This is... If you know me, I love albums that are from start to finish. Concept albums. This is the ultimate hip-hop concept album. Because it's not just the music. It's everything. I hope I made a strong argument on that one. That there is a lot going on with the Life of Pablo. So we're going to do the... move on to the $1
The dollar throwback.
Hey, guess what? I bought a dollar record. Rare Earth, 1970 Ecology. Guess who sampled that? Kanye. Yeah, he did do that. Remember I told you about that? Remember I said that he sampled it on 30 Hours? Yeah. I bought a record that Kanye listens to for $1. Oh, you want to know who Rare Earth is? Oh, they're pretty awesome. All right. So the track... I'm kind of aggressive there. So the track that he sampled was I Know I'm Losing You. Which is actually a Temptations cover. But it's by Rare Earth. And Rare Earth... they were the first all-white band, the first successful all-white band signed by Motown. They had a lot of attention on the new format of FM radio. Like they were, so when FM radio was hot, was just showing up, you were listening to Rare Earth. A band signed by Motown. And guess what? Rare Earth Records is a subsidiary of Motown Records. Rare Earth Records is the subsidiary of Motown that was focusing on rock music by a white artist, right? Rare Earth was the first successful. I'm telling you, they're the first. Rare Earth is, guys, I bought this for $1. I'm telling you, dig through the dollar section. You find incredible things. And what's crazy is that on this album, on the Ecology album, that they have a cover of Eleanor Rigby, they have a cover of the Temptations, but they're, they got flute, saxophone, guitar, drums, bass, but they got Motown bass, they got Motown saxophone, they got some cat playing flute. These guys opened up for Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Earth, Wind and Fire, The Eagles. Do you know that song, Get Ready? Get ready, cause here I come. That song. That song that's on Dumb and Dumber. That's Rare Earth. That was a number 4 in the Billboard 100s. I bought this record for $1, y'all. You gotta dig through the dollar. Dollar throwback, I'm telling you. So the lead singer, Peter Horobeke, I'm saying it wrong. He left. But he sounds like Jim Morrison. If you're into Jim Morrison, into the Doors, you're going to love Rare Earth. Check out Rare Earth. The original guitarist is Rod Richards. He left after the 1970 Ecology album. But when you listen to this album, you can hear that Black Sabbath influence. So the track nice Place to Visit, that sounds like a Black Sabbath track, but not like late Black Sabbath, like early, like blues band Black Sabbath, right? Like that heavy that heavy, late 60s, 70s, just, oh, guess what? We learned this new technology. How do you make distortion? Oh, this doesn't sound great like that, but you're still playing blues guitar riffs. Rod Richards is clearly listening to Black Sabbath, and they hung out. I'm telling you, you gotta read the back of these albums, y'all. You gotta figure out who's listening to who. That's how you find cool stuff. The track Satisfaction, same thing. You can hear that 1970s influence, but you got add a little bit of, Black Sabbath on top, and you put a little bit of Motown sax in the background. Like that. So, Rare Earth. These guys played with Meatloaf. The guitar guy, the second guy, he worked with Funkadelic. They worked with Phil Collins. Dollar Throwback. They were mentioned in Gil Scott-Heron's 1970 poem, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." This band that Kanye sampled, this band that is a staple in the Motown records, I got for $1. And it doesn't skip. Don't not look in the dollar record section. I'm telling you. That's where the best stuff is. That's where the best stuff is. Alright. I think that's plenty. Hope you all enjoyed that. Probably was a rant. But if you got any comments, you got any suggestions for the next thing I should review, you can hit us up at regsect808@gmail.com. Leave a comment in the YouTube page. We got a Facebook, Regsect808 Productions. Find that page. Follow it. Start talking about us. Tell your friends. Hey, we got Twitter too. Some of y'all are crazy on that Twitter. I need some tweets. Come on. Get that going. At Regsect808. Thanks for listening. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed it.